Good morning, everyone.
Welcome, folks. You are here at the right place, right time. So just to welcome everyone and give you a kind of a heads up, over in the chat, you should be able to see the chat. Good morning, Andrew. We have some comments going, and we'll be addressing some of those in a few minutes as we get the presentation started. So just to give you a heads up, you are at Safety First, how to avoid potential scams while job searching, and you're part of SNHU Career Day 2023. So welcome, thank you for being here and taking the time. So I'm going to start with a few quick announcements. My name is Jason Whitney. I'm a career advisor here with SNHU, and I'm the MC, I guess if you want to call it that, for this program this morning. So just kind of want to give you a heads up. The program is being recorded. You do have an option to turn on captions. So you can turn on captions by selecting the More button at the top of your Teams screen and selecting Turn on Live Captions from the drop-down menu. After you've turned your captions on, you can use the ellipsis, those little 3 dots button in the caption bar, to select your preferred language for the captions. Microphones will remain muted for the session. So if you do have a question or comment about anything the presenters share, please share it in the chat. The chat will be available throughout the session, and we encourage you to share questions throughout. As far as comments, we ask that you be kind and refrain from using any inappropriate language or sharing any offensive content. We are all here to learn and engage with our community and do appreciate your cooperation. Please do not photograph, screenshot, or record anyone in attendance. This session is being recorded, and there is no obligation to have your camera on or to use the chat to be here and participate in the session. The presentation slides may contain clickable links. For those viewing this presentation on a mobile device, we will include the links in the chat as well, so you can retrieve them at the end without being taken out of the session. You will see that Teams offers helpful presentation options like changing the written language of the slides and the opportunity to move through the slides at your own pace. If you move through the slides and wish to get back to the slide currently being discussed by the presenter, just select the red box that says Sync to Presenter, and this will bring you back to the current slide that's being discussed, and it will not impact anyone else's viewing experience. So if you have questions, please share those as you will. And kind of moving through here. So as far as this experience and this workshop for you, we do want to share a little bit of information about SNHU's access and accommodation policies. So your experience here at SNHU is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the appropriate department. For online students, please connect with the Online Accessibility Center by emailing oac@snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430. For campus students, please contact the Campus Accessibility Center by emailing cac@snhu.edu or by phone at 603-644-3118. For all staff and faculty who are joining us this morning, please contact the Human Resources Office by email at hr@snhu.edu. All right, so going on to our next slide here, we're about to discuss and introduce our fantastic presenters. We're looking forward to their session this morning. So up first, Lisa Ginelli. Lisa is a passionate career advisor at Southern New Hampshire University. Lisa's professional career commenced with helping organizations find exceptional talent while assisting job seekers in finding meaningful and gainful employment. Being a recruiter, a human resources professional and manager, and more recently an entrepreneur, has been valuable in shaping her ability to work effectively on a team to support organizational initiatives. Lisa has a BA degree in psychology and an MS in human resources counseling, and has engaged in continual professional development throughout her entire career. She absolutely loves supporting SNHU learners and university initiatives. And then there's Shelby. I'm going to mess the name up again. Help me out, Shelby. Just say it.
Dakota.
Dakota, thank you. Shelby Dakota is a senior information security analyst on the security operations team at Southern New Hampshire University and has been with the university for 2.5 years. Shelby has worked in the information security field since 2015 and has prior experience in several industries, including higher ed, the federal government, financial services, and managed security services. Shelby has a bachelor's and a master's degree in information security and recently earned her certified information security specialist credential. In her free time, Shelby enjoys hiking with her dog, riding her motorcycle, and snowboarding, which is pretty amazing. So as we go to the beginning here, I'm going to have Lisa start us off. And thank you, folks. Have a great session this morning.
Thank you so much, Jason. Good morning and welcome, everyone. We're so happy that you chose to join us so early in the morning, perhaps for some of you, to discuss the important topic of how to avoid job scams while you're job seeking. So just to start us off, just out of a little bit of curiosity, just want to know how many of you, let's see, maybe just pop in the chat here. How many of you have experienced some type of fraudulent activity or any type of scam, anything questionable? If you don't mind just popping something in the chat, like yes, no, oh yes, yep, okay. Here it comes. Yeah, so glad you could join us. I know. Sad, it looks like, wow, the majority of you have come across this. So, as you know, scams and fraudulent job ads are not always as obvious as maybe this image here depicted on our slide. Here's a little spoiler. You might see this image again during the presentation. And since it so profoundly illustrates what we're discussing today, learning to safeguard your personal information sets you up for success. The whole team here in Career Services, we're committed to your job search success and safety. And unfortunately, we've been receiving reports of an uptick in scam activity. And in some cases, it's had a negative impact on the job seeker. In one particular case, a learner gave notice to their current employer as they thought the job offer that they had received was legitimate on all levels. And once they realized the job was a complete scam, they were unable to rescind their resignation as the employer had already filled their role with someone else. So needless to say, this was painful all around. And especially as advisors, it's very important. We care about your job search safety. Our main priority is to support our learners through a successful job search process. That's really, your success is our success. That's why we're here. And the message today is that it takes a village to stay cyber safe, and it does start with you. So at Southern New Hampshire University, we're so fortunate to have access to some of the most knowledgeable and passionate cybersecurity professionals across the globe. And I'm pleased to introduce to you one of my colleagues from our Security Management Office, Senior Information Security Analyst, Shelby Dakota, who will share some practical tips and insights to keep yourself and those you care about safe while navigating a job search. Shelby, you want to take control?
All right, taking control. Cool. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Shelby. As Lisa had said, I work with the Security Management Office here at SNHU. I work in security operations and help out with our information security awareness and training team. So I'm just going to dive right in here. So information security is also commonly known as cybersecurity in the headlines. It's basically, we're responsible for protecting information, both your information, SNHU's information, employees' information, all of the data that SNHU technically owns. We are responsible for protecting that data. So the Information Security Management Office, ISMO at SNHU, is the department that is responsible for that. Another key term here is PII, which is personally identifiable information, which I'm sure you've heard more and more frequently, as breaches become more commonplace in the last 10, 15 years. So PII is information that is it's individual to you, and it can identify you, and You can use it to paint a digital picture of someone. So your social security number, your date of birth, your personal email address, your SNHU email address, all of that stuff combined makes your kind of like online identity. And the more information that someone has about you, the better picture they can paint of you. The last term that we're going to cover is social engineering. It's the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or PII that may be used for fraudulent purposes. So keeping these definitions in mind, I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, so really just to like dive right in here, when you're job hunting, you never want to pay money, like really ever at any point in time. There should be no reason why an employer would ask you for funds. Yes, later on down the line, once you're onboarding, you might have to give away your bank account number so that you can get paid. You might have to fill out tax forms so that you can, have taxes taken out, which would require divulging your social security number. But during the interview process, or before you have completely agreed to accept a job, there's no reason to give out really much PII. That an application itself shouldn't really be asking for your date of birth, your social security number. They shouldn't be asking you for your bank account information. Even here at SNHU, something that we've noticed in the security operations team is a lot of times scammers will interview you at your SNHU email address, and then they will request that you reply to them through a different email address or through WhatsApp. There's really no legitimate reason for somebody to do that. And most job applications are going to use a legitimate job application service and not something like Google Forms, where you would be supplying your date of birth or your driver's license information through a Google form. So until you're hired, there's really no reason to give out PII. And if you are, it should be on a legitimate job application through an actual something like, I can't remember the big vendors, but you can tell the difference of a real one versus a Google form, for example. So you go through the interview and then all of a sudden you figure out like you've been ghosted. They don't respond, they don't call back, but that's not always a bad thing. The reason why that can happen sometimes is if it is a scammer and not a legitimate offer, maybe you ask questions during the interview that they could tell that you were maybe on to them, and that, maybe you were like, well, why do you need my social security number right now? I guess I'm just not sure what that has to do with figuring out if I'm qualified for the position or not. It might kind of tip them off that you're on to them. So don't contact them and reach out. Just kind of trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. It's not legitimate. Okay, so social engineering, there's kind of two different types of social engineering that go into these job scams. Social engineering is all about manipulation. They're manipulating you to divulge information so that they can use that information in a fraudulent way. Baiting and pretexting are the two common types here. The bait is the job ad. So, it might look really legitimate. Another form of this is online dating scams, just pretending to be something that you're not, or a job posting that is not legitimate. They're trying to get you to take the bait to respond to the job offer so that they can get an interview, and hopefully steal information from you. The next part is pretexting. So that's an employer, so say you've gone through the interview process. After you go through the interview or you provide your information, and the potential employer might reach out to you pretending to be a hiring manager or a recruiter or someone in a position of authority. And they promise that, they're going to hire you and you're going to make it on to the next phase of the interview. But first, they want to make sure that they have all of your information. So they might ask you for your bank account at that point in time, or your driver's license number, your social security. That position of authority is all about manipulation. and trying to make it seem more legitimate so that you're more likely to reveal that data that they're looking for. But again, really no reason. Another common thing that we've seen is scammers will ask you to buy supplies for a future job that they're going to be offering you. Again, really no reason legitimately to ever do that. So that should be another red flag to look out for. Phishing. I think everyone's probably heard this term. Two other ones that are kind of related are smishing and vishing. Phishing is a classic baiting technique. So even if, like, phishing emails can be used to send a job ad, they can also be used to, maybe the job ad has an attachment to it, and that attachment has, in the email, it's laced with malware. So you don't even have to reply to them at that point. Once you click the attachment, it might download something on your device, and then it's got access to whatever data you have on your device. Maybe it might steal your password so they can then log onto your banking account and get your banking information or your credit card. So it's both things. The bait can be in the form of, I want to talk to you, or it can be in the form of malware. Smishing is basically the same thing, but through a text message. So text messages are SMS messages, so that's why it's smishing. And then vishing is through the phone. So for smishing, usually they're going to have a link. An example that comes up often is, we need you to update your shipping information for an order that you just placed. That's not really, if that comes to your phone, the best thing to do, say it comes from Amazon, is to not click on that link, but go to your Amazon account and look at your orders. Do I have any orders that they're asking me to update my order information? No. Okay, then this probably means that it's not legitimate. Vishing, your car warranty is about to expire. I think we all get these pretty much nonstop. But they're going to try and coax you into giving out your credit card or banking information. So two additional examples that, if you think of Ferris Bueller, again, going back to the implied authority idea, one of the common things that we'll see is, again, once you get the job, well, this kind of goes into the helpful nature, but it also goes into implied authority. Maybe the chief human resources officer reaches out to you and says, "Oh, our recruiter told us that you've accepted the position. She's out today. I'm the chief human resources officer, so I need you to give me your social security number and your banking account right away. And you haven't signed anything yet." That's not. Again, that would seem kind of odd for someone like the chief human resources officer to reach out to you just to collect basic onboarding information. That's a red flag to look out for. And then taking advantage of helpful nature. So I think the better example for this one is, again, thinking to the HR rep. So they sound super frantic. They're very frazzled. They say they were supposed to reach out to you a few days ago and they totally forgot. They tell you this super long story to try to get you to feel bad for them. They want to catch you off guard, like in the middle of the day, and manipulate your kind human nature so that you don't ask any questions and you want to help them right away because you feel bad for them. But keep an eye out for that, because that is a very common social engineering technique that people will use to try and get that personal information out of you so that they can use it to conduct fraudulent activities. They might even, say, "I want to fill out your I-9 form over the phone." That's not really something that you should ever look to do. Unless you're taking a remote position, you should always fill out your I-9 in person. If you are taking a remote position, make sure that all of your onboarding where you are giving out that information is done through secure channels. Really, email is not that much of a secure channel. If a human resources department does ask you for banking information, for you to fill out your I-9 and then like just type out what you would put in through email and send it back to them. It's not that is not a secure way to transfer that information. You should definitely request, do you have a better way? Like, can I call you if you're doing a remote session, a remote job? Email should really be last resort for sending any sort of personal information. At SNHU, we use Workday, so you can log right into Workday and enter your own banking information in there, and that is a secure system. If you look it up, you can see, yes, Workday is a human resources application used by a bunch of organizations. There are other ones out there, but that is definitely something to keep in mind. Email is 100% the last resort when you're trying to send secure information. Excuse me. Just gonna take a sip of water. Okay, so social engineering, job scams lead to money theft, PII theft, and then employer scams. So we're gonna go into all three of those. Money or PII theft. So as it implies, the money theft involves the employer asking for money up front. Most frequently, they ask you for your bank account information like very early on, or maybe at the second or third step of talking to you, and they tell you it's to set up your direct deposit. But that frequently is not the case. Again, I know Lisa had talked about an example of a learner who had, kind of lost their job because they fell for a different type of scam, but we also see these scams quite frequently that come through via email, where again, they will ask you to respond separate from your SNHU account, and to send your driver's license number and your bank account information so that they can set up direct deposit, typically for like an assistant type of job, like a clerical type of job where maybe there's not, the interview can be pretty quick, but in these cases, they're not even asking for an interview. They're just saying, yeah, if you want this job as an assistant for, again, they will try to exploit your human nature. And oftentimes, like during COVID, they were saying, or after big earthquakes or other like weather events, we'll see an uptick in them. They'll say, we need your help to help the Red Cross organization, and you're going to be an assistant helping raise money to recover from this weather event. They will exploit that event to try and get your information. And they'll also ask for your social security number in advance to try and get paperwork set up. That's PII theft. That's not money theft. They will then steal your identity, and you definitely don't want to go down that route. It is a nightmare to clean that up. They'll open up credit cards with your social security number. They can do a whole bunch of damage. So keep that number to yourself as much as possible. Be super, super suspicious about giving that out. It's not something that really anyone else should have unless they absolutely need it for a very legitimate purpose. Employer scams result from PII theft. So what these scammers are doing is, maybe we'll use SNHU as an example. I don't know of this happening here at this point in time, but say someone sends an email to, thousands of our learners, and they end up getting 100 responses. They will then use all of those responses and kind of mash them up. So they'll take John's social security number, Shelby's email address, and Mary's date of birth and create a completely fake person. And then they'll apply to, they'll sorry, I'm just trying to read the notes here that somebody else wrote for me. Basically, you can then use that information to create a fake identity and open up accounts, but whoever's social security number is linked to that, again, they're going to be the one that gets affected the most. And the other thing that they'll do with this fake information is use the fake identity to apply for remote jobs. They'll onboard to this remote job, and they will quote unquote work for this company for weeks before they get caught. They get a paycheck to a bank account that is not traceable because it's linked to a fake person. They'll take the money out of the bank account and then they will pretty much disappear from the job. So that's the employer scam. There is a lot of effort that goes into that. So, I mean, really, if these people could target their efforts towards something legitimate, they would probably, get a pretty good job, because you have to work pretty hard for this to work out. But again, just little pieces of PII is all it takes for them to then combine it, make a fake person, get the money, and run. So in that point, you're not really the one that's out of the money, but the employer is at that point, right? So how do you protect yourself from all these really scary things? It is possible to do. You don't have to be a cyber expert. It's pretty simple, and even if all of this is overwhelming just right now, there's always resources here at SNHU that you can reach out to if you ever have questions. But just for starters, so homework is important in school, just like it is for job hunting. When you apply to a job or you receive somebody reaches out to you, ask them about the company, or even if you're not asking them, do your research on their website. What is the company about? What's their mission? What's their vision? What is the culture about? Usually all of this is on their website. And if it's not, ask super targeted questions during the interview to make sure that they have an actual answer for this stuff, because any legitimate employer is going to have an answer for you. If during the interview you do ask those questions and they seem to be avoiding them, it's probably a scam. If they can't give you a good enough answer, say something you're passionate about, like green initiatives, you ask them if they have any sort of opportunities or like committees that you can get involved in. And if they completely divert and go to a totally different topic, that even if it's a company that doesn't have like a green committee, they would say, wow, that's a really good idea. That's something that we could definitely look into. We have a subcommittee that talks about all of these different initiatives. If they don't have it, they would have a legitimate answer and it wouldn't be completely off topic. The other thing for interviewing online, a lot of that is commonplace these days. If you are doing an interview over Zoom or Teams or any other remote service, insist that the camera be turned on. If an interviewer cannot turn their camera on, that is a huge flag, a huge red flag. Have your camera on, ask that they turn theirs on. If they don't, leave the interview, because there's really there is no legitimate reason for an employer to not feel comfortable turning their camera on unless they're trying to hide something. LinkedIn is a great resource when you're applying for jobs. And a lot of times hiring managers and recruiters actually like to see that you took this step. When somebody looks at your LinkedIn profile or your company, the companies and the person's profile that you're looking at can tell that you've looked at it. So a lot of times that will kind of be like, oh, they're doing their research. That's a really good trait. They're trying to be prepared. If you can't find a company on LinkedIn or any other like basic web search, probably a red flag. Look for them on Facebook, look for them on Instagram. How old is their profile? That is another really key thing to look for, especially on LinkedIn. You can typically tell either through LinkedIn, or there's another service called Zoom Info, where you can kind of look for different statistics about a company that will tell you how many employees work there. If it's a company that claims to have been around since the 90s and they have 2 employees, that's kind of weird. Do some legwork. Use the internet to your advantage in these cases. If you can't find anything at all, even if you look up the hiring manager, the person that reached out to you to offer you the job or request your bank information, if you look them up and there's no legitimate person associated with whatever company they claim to be from, that's a huge red flag. People use these social media services to their advantage, and if they're not using them, then they're trying to hide something, most likely. Again, look at their website. How old is it? When was it last updated? You can you can fake the information on a site, but you can't fake how long it was when it was last updated. So going back to the Google form example, even a lot of times we'll see copyright. Like right now, if we got one, scammers will forget to update the copyright information. We'll say 2020 on the bottom. Like legitimate companies will have people that will be constantly updating these websites so that they don't fall behind like that. Again, if it seems weird, but you still want to proceed with the interview, you can also ask during the interview, like, how long has the company been around? How many employees do you have? See if it matches up with what you can find on the internet. Just like with school, again, do your homework before you're going to these job interviews and signing any paperwork or giving away your information. It's critical to just, if something feels weird, it's probably not legitimate. So just always keep that in mind. And I think that is my last slide. So I'm going to hand it over to, I think, is it Lisa for Handshake?
Yes, Shelby, thank you so much. And did everyone hear that last message from Shelby? Do your homework. I love how you ended on that note. For all our learners out there, that must be the instructor in me, the adjunct. I'm just channeling my inner. So excellent, excellent information. Thank you so much again, Shelby. We really appreciate that insight. The chat is blowing up. I love to see it. I'm getting distracted by shiny objects, but I do have to share with you, most of you are familiar with Handshake. Handshake is our online recruiting platform that we offer for students and alumni. We do partner with vetted employers that hire students and alumni, like all of you, for jobs and internships. So building a profile in Handshake does allow employers to see your background and experiences and how they align with their employment needs. But we also use Handshake to communicate employment events and bring these events and these employers to you. And so graciously, one of our Handshake gurus from our Career Services Department, David Baresh, has shared some of these tips for keeping your information secure while sourcing opportunities within the Handshake platform. 1, ensure that your profile is set to public, community, or private based on the level of engagement you want with the platform. So you have control. Take your control there. Ensure that all details on your profile are accurate and non-confidential. Update your cities of interest and job seeking status regularly to ensure they are accurate. And while some employers will send unsolicited messages to your account, the big takeaway here is do not click any external links in these messages. If it is advertising a job or an event, do a search for the job or event in Handshake to verify it. So Handshake does have a trust and safety team. They work around the clock reviewing flags for suspicious activity. They often have fraudulent employers identified and deactivated within 3 hours of the first report. So if you see something suspicious in Handshake, flag it for their trust and safety team to review. Super important. Again, as always, and outreach us with your questions here in Career Services. You're not alone in this venture. This is precisely why we're here. Can't thank you enough for being here. We love your participation. Hopefully you've had some great takeaways. And now I think to the best part of our presentation, we'll move on to some Q&A.
All right. First, thank you everyone who's here in attendance, and also thank you, Shelby, and thank you, Lisa, for all the great information. We do have a couple questions, so I'm just going to kind of work back from where we started. So Paul asked a question, and he was wondering, is it okay to ask an employer for their federal tax ID if there's a concern if the company's real to verify the company? So I'll put that to Shelby or Lisa. Is that something that you think is common?
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa, because that's actually a good question. My gut would say yes, but when I think about it more, could you fake that number?
You can. There are ways to verify the number. So
Okay.
depending upon the registry, that's a great question, by the way. Thank you for posing it. There are ways to verify that through either the Better Business Bureau, I believe, or through the registration. And unfortunately, registration for businesses varies by state. So the process, whether that's open to the public or not, and access to that information can be a little tricky. I don't think it hurts at all, especially in this virtual age. I would think that employers would anticipate questions like that to confirm legitimacy, so it certainly cannot hurt. We can certainly look into that and follow up with additional information if we uncover it. If there's one particular channel, if we can condense that for everyone to follow, we'll be more than happy to share it. So thanks for posing that one.
All right, and I have another question. I believe this one is from Henry. Henry asks a question, is it common for job applications to ask for your date of birth? And is that a concern?
It is common through secured means once. So again, like Workday, if you're applying to something through Workday or through, I forget the one through Oracle, there's a bunch of legitimate websites. So you see the lock in the browser. It's a secured website. You can tell it's an actual job application form where they're asking for your full history. I think at that point in time, it could be legit, but if somebody's asking for it through a Google form or through email or over the phone, don't supply that information. I'll let Lisa add. I could be wrong too, that maybe it's not even something that you can ask for during the application. There you go.
Yeah. Can you
Sorry.
see me? Yeah, that is a big no. We stay away from asking any type of personal information, especially during the interview process. That in itself should be a red flag. So that has no bearing on hiring. There might be outliers to that rule, exceptional, like civil service. If you're applying for law enforcement,
Right. Yeah.
there are parameters. So but that's a simple question. Does your age fall between this date and this date? So there's sort of a range. It's not asking specifically for your date of birth. That's right. That's a no. So not only could that be used or misused for fraudulent purposes, it's also a discriminatory question potentially. So that is a huge red flag all around.
Right. Yeah. I'm probably thinking my government experience is probably intruding on that question a little bit.
Right.
And
sure.
thinking of more so after you get the offer, but during the application, you're right. Yeah, I don't see any really legitimate need to provide your date of birth.
Great question. My age is between 1 and 53. That's what I tell people. Another question, just in general for all of our learners, like suppose a learner feels they've received a spam job offer. Is there a process or a link, or who do they go to if they're concerned about the truth and validity of a job offer they receive? Yeah,
sure. So I did just post that the chat is blowing up, but I did post a link to the SNHU fishbowl. This is where we post when we identify a scam that might be targeting. We don't post every single phishing email that we receive at SNHU, because unfortunately there are a lot of them. But if there is a big enough, what we call campaign, that is targeting a large enough audience that we get reports of, we will post this message to the fishbowl. So if you get something, check that link, see if it's been posted there. If it hasn't been posted there, that does not automatically imply that it's legitimate. If you're still not sure, send it to the phishing@snhu.edu email. My team will review it and make a determination. If it's legitimate, we will respond to you and say, yep, this is legit. There's also times we will post things to the fishbowl to tell people that it is legitimate. So use the fishbowl to your advantage. Always check it when you're not sure. And if you're still not sure, please forward it to phishing and don't interact with it. It's not worth it. I promise.
Jason, I think you're muted.
Jason, you're muted.
Jason, I think you're muted.
Man, that's why I didn't have enough coffee this morning. Thank you. Yes. I just wanted to say to all the attendees, we are slated to go till 8:45, so we have plenty of time for more questions. If you do have a question, please post something in the chat. So I'm just going to kind of wait and monitor. As we're looking for folks to post things, I do want to reinforce Shelby's point about trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right and you have a concern, it may be legitimate. All right, we have a new question from Sandra. Is it a red flag if a recruiter on LinkedIn doesn't have a profile picture? Great question. I'll open that up to you, Shelby or Lisa.
I think
What do you think, Lisa?
Well, yeah, I mean, any of this suspicious behavior, remember in this virtual world, here we are with our cameras on. This is how we connect today. This is how we start to build a rapport. So anything, just to circle back again, if it doesn't feel right, question it. Follow those questions until you receive the answers that you seek. And my gut would say yes. Feels a little unnerving, especially as a recruiter. And being a recruiter in my past life, talk about the fishbowl, the pH. I've lived my life in a fishbowl, the FI version. And, as a recruiter, you need to be out there. You need to be open to receive and to build that rapport, to make genuine alignments between job opportunities and potential candidates. So that's definitely a red flag. And again, just to echo what we've been talking about here, you're not alone. Please contact us. Anything through Handshake. I believe Handshake has the option to flag within the platform itself. So you can flag that for their trust and safety team, but you can certainly not only utilize the fishbowl and Shelby's team, but also please come to us and Career Services and we'll walk you through that process as well.
Communication is key, folks, so please share information if you have any concerns with your career advisor and the team. We still have a couple more questions. Donna Marie asks, how much information should you add to sites like Indeed and LinkedIn? And I think there's certain context there, right? So how much should you share on those sites for employers?
I work in security, so I say as little as possible. Definitely no PII. So I know personally, I don't put my cell phone number or my personal email address on my public or really private LinkedIn profile. If somebody wants to contact me on LinkedIn, they can contact me on LinkedIn. And then we can share a more legitimate way to communicate with each other if we have to. As far as your previous roles, again, coming from a government world, I keep it super generic and basically just put where I worked. But if you are job searching, it can obviously help to put more details around what you did at that job. But then you can also put even more details in your resume. You don't have to disclose absolutely everything on your public profile. That's kind of my opinion. Lisa, I'll let you add on to that if you want.
I concur, Shelby. And additionally, we also encourage for resume writing when you're compiling your resume, it's not even necessary to put your full mailing address, maybe the city and state where you reside, just so employers might know you're close. And in some cases and that's really just to check a box on the HR side of things. If an employer has a legal right to hire within your state, that's important to at least indicate that, but it's not necessary to list your complete mailing address. So again, I'm with you. Less is more in this case. And I think it's a trust thing. It's just like if you've engaged for construction services, you wouldn't pay someone up front for all of the services. You'll pay as you go. So I think the same holds true in this case, where you'll offer a little bit more information based upon your own comfort level. So you are in the driver's seat here. You should never be denied an opportunity or to proceed in the process for not supplying information you don't feel comfortable with.
Excellent response. We have a few more questions. This one's from Jason. Are group interviews a red flag, or is this a new way to interview?
Go ahead, Lisa.
All right. It really depends upon the position. And that's kind of exciting. Group interviews, depending upon what the role is, because if you're, say, presenting, you should be quite comfortable in a group and being able to communicate in a group. So panel discussions, it could just be a time thing, depending upon the organization you're interviewing with. Maybe getting hiring managers or stakeholders together at the same time. Time could be a very rare commodity. So expecting to have this group interview, I don't see an issue with that. It has to be relevant, though. There has to be a reason why. And you can pose that question. Just curious, Why is it that I'm meeting with a team of people versus one hiring manager?
All right, we have
and make sure if it is a group interview and all the interviewees have their camera on, but the interviewer doesn't, that's a red flag. That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Again, supporting everything Shelby and Lisa are saying, trust your gut, and the cameras should be on, absolutely, so you know who you're talking to, where they are, kind of the situation. We have a few questions in a few more minutes. I do want to address any questions related to like how to create a resume, get an internship, develop your LinkedIn profile. Please reach out to your career advisor. Please schedule an appointment through your online career services folks. If you're an online student, if you're a campus student, reach out through Handshake, okay? Really important. We do have one more question. Lima asks, we haven't gotten an answer yet about job offers with Handshake, and you get no response when students send questions or inquiries to recruiters. So is it a legit post? So sometimes, I guess, follow through is also poor. Doesn't necessarily mean the recruiter is not legitimate, but Lisa or Shelby, do you want to respond to that in regards to Handshake follow through?
I mean, right off the top of my mind, there are people that are not that great at their job and they will ghost you even if they are legitimate. That is, but that, you know what, that's another reason to say I wouldn't want to work there anyways if that's kind of the culture of the company. That's, again, thinking about all of these as individual red flags. There's not, I mean, sometimes there is the big one giveaway, but otherwise it could be a group of red flags that kind of give away why something is not legitimate. But I'll let Lisa expand on the no response from a recruiter.
Of course, of course. And let's not forget the sheer volume that most recruiters are juggling. And I'm not making excuses, certainly. I'm just pointing to potential explanations of why you may not receive the response that you're seeking. And, you know, and that's okay. Follow-up is perfectly acceptable within a given time frame, 1 to 2 weeks. If you haven't heard anything, certainly to follow up, and seeking a status is very professional and welcomed, expected, no less. Beyond that, again, what Shelby said, if someone's not responding to you, is that really somewhere you wish to pursue? You know, giving people the benefit of the doubt. It may not be that they're not great at their jobs, but they're overwhelmed, hence why they're looking to fill roles.
Yes,
so let's look at the human side of things as well, and piece everything together. Use your critical thinking to pull this together. Again, if something doesn't feel right, trust yourself, recruit us. We're here for you. That's why we're here. And let us help you in that instance. You don't have to go this alone.
I should correct myself. It does not automatically mean that someone is bad at their job. In fact, to get my job at SNHU, I had to reach out to the recruiter a couple times because he was so busy. He was right in the heat of COVID. So
there you go.
It's not necessary, but checking in, like Lisa said, is a great thing to do. But if you get entirely ghosted, like even after you've had like 1 or 2 interviews, that's kind of weird for someone to completely ghost you even after checking in. So
all good points. All right, folks. I do want to, again, thank Lisa and thank Shelby for all the fantastic information. We have in the chat information about how to contact folks on campus as far as advisors, folks online as far as advisors, and we have more links to the Career Day sessions. So the slide in front of you right now, if you're interested in attending other sessions offered throughout the day, please click on the link in the slide, and hopefully we'll see you at another Career Day program later today. Again, check out Handshake for opportunities, internships, and jobs. And if you have any questions, kind of Shelby said, don't go it alone. Please lean on your SNHU community and your professional staff. We're here to help you. So without any other, I guess, anything for the good of the order, I think we will wrap up the session, and hopefully we'll see you at another one later today.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason. Thank you so much, Shelby. Thank you, everyone, for being
here. Thanks, everyone.
We appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care, folks.